Welcome. In this video we're going to be taking a quick look at Anarore, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce the name. Anyway, she's an epic grade debuffer class Elune. Starting off looking at her stats at 6 stars, she has an okay HP at 22k, attack at 4.8, and PDEF and MDEF at 3 and 3.1. Her attack speed's 108, which isn't too bad, and it does put her about the higher range of the mid-range speeds, which isn't too bad. When she's transcended up to the max, her HP goes up to an okay amount at 33k, with her attack being at 7.3 and her PDEF and MDEF ending at 4.6 and 4.7k, which isn't too bad for an epic grade Elune. Moving on to her skills, her first skill is just a standard normal attack, doing magic damage to a single target in the front line. And as it's bumped up to the max, it does do decent damage as magic, and she's a debuffer, so typically will be built with some damage in mind, so the skill can do a little bit of damage. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the skill gem set bonus here too. So for the skill gem set on this one, if you do it, which is blue, blue, orange, it increases the chance of inflicting freeze on targets with frostbite by 5%. This goes along with her passive, which we'll get to in a moment, but anyway, this just increases the chance of you freezing a target if it has the frostbite debuff on it, which is good. It just increases that chance by 5%, which isn't too bad, so you should probably do it. Plus the blue, blue, and orange do help the skill do more damage. Looking at the special skill, this is a frontline attack only again, 4 souls, called Frost Wave. This one does magic damage a decent amount and has a 75% chance of doing the nature effect Frostbite for 3 turns. Frostbite is pretty decent, and if you don't know what it is, just taking a quick look at it, does soul damage equal to 15% of the max HP if soul is not used during that turn. The max damage cannot exceed 3 times the attack of the caster and only deals a fifth of the damage to bosses. What this means is Frostbite, if they use something that does not consume soul, they take damage. If they use something that consumes soul, then they don't take damage. And the damage is 15% of their max HP, but not more than 3 times the attack. So it is a pretty good debuff, but there is ways to avoid it. As long as you have souls to burn, you can burn the souls and not have to worry about taking that soul damage. Anyway, it still is a pretty good debuff, as most of the time you can manipulate AIs or whatever, and they'll not always use soul skills, so they'll take some decent damage, as it is quite noticeable. As the skill is leveled up to the max, the damage of the skill's base does go up to a pretty decent amount. It is a frontline only attack, so that's not too bad. The chance of landing the nature effect is still 75%, so it might not land, but the number of turns goes up to 4. Again, the skill gem effect for this skill is the same as it is for the other skill, which is the freeze if they have frostbite, increased by 5%. The blue, blue, violet means more magic damage and faster speed after casting the skill. Her ultimate skill is a 6 soul skill. This is an AoE skill now. This one does a decent amount of magic damage to all enemies, and again with a 75% chance of doing frostbite for 3 turns, so it's very similar to her special skill, but this is an AoE hitting all the targets. As the skill is leveled up to the max, the chance still remains again at 75%. The damage is pretty decent, and the frostbite goes up to 4 turns. This is essentially a slightly different than her special skill, as that it's an AoE, but it's the same thing, but an AoE. It does the damage, it does magic damage, it's 75% chance to put a 4-turn frostbite at max. So for 2 souls more, you can do an AoE version of the special skill. Now for this one, the skill gem set again is the same as the special, which is blue, blue, violent, which is magic damage and speed after casting. This one, however, increases the chance of inflicting freeze by 10% if they have frostbite. So that's a pretty good amount, as she has a good chance of landing frostbite with 2 skills. The chance of putting the freeze on them afterwards increases by 10%, which is pretty good. Now let's look at her passives. Her first passive, this one gives her a 50% chance to to inflict a nature effect that freezes if the target has frostbite for 2 turns, so it's a 2-turn freeze if they have frostbite. This makes her pretty effective at being a CC, but it is a little bit RNG dependent. Because 1, they need to have the frostbite, which is only a chance with her special and ultimate skills, and then it is only a 50-50 chance that they freeze anyway. However, with the skill gem bonuses to the skills, she does have a chance to freeze. Now the nice thing here is that her normal skill with this passive has a 55% chance to freeze if they have frostbite. So that's pretty decent. Her second passive now, also, if she defeats a target that has frostbite or freeze, she'll do magic damage equal to 30% of the damage to all the enemies. So think of it kind of like an explosion. If she kills something, then everybody takes an additional 30% of the damage she dealt to killing that enemy as damage if they had frostbite or freeze when she killed them. It's a little bit of a splash damage type thing. Her third passive now, when attacking a target that has frostbite or freeze, the damage dealt increases by 20%. This means that she just does more damage. If they already have frostbite or freeze on them, then she'll do more damage. This actually, her skill kit along with her passives make her a very good ally to pair with Skady, the epic grade tank, as he also applies the frostbite effects. The freeze effects and stuff too can help her do more damage if she's paired with Elucia, because Elucia's strip will also freeze. So if you can land the Elucia's strip to freeze, then she can also help do more damage by dealing more damage, and if she kills anything, then everything takes splash damage too. So it is a pretty good team to use. As far as stats that you would want to go on her, because of her low base stats on her PDEF and MDEF, you're going to want to go with that. However, she is a debuffer, so you're going to need some accuracy on her, so try to make sure you get some decent accuracy on her, or go with a gear set that gives her increased chance for debuff, like the full moon set. So anything you can do to increase her accuracy or chance of landing debuffs is what you're going to want to do, because her main benefit is going to be damage with CC and the freezes plus the frostbite damage, so you're going to need to make sure you land those debuffs. So something like the full moon set, just the 3-piece is enough to make sure she lands it, and the deep or a full 6-piece debuffer set, or even the 3-piece debuffer set to make sure to help reduce the chance of them gaining the tolerance effects is also going to be very helpful when using her. For the Dimension Slate options with her, you're going to want to go the same thing as the gear, any substats that you can get that give her HP, attack, because you do want her to do some damage, PDEF, MDEF, speed, and of course accuracy, because she needs to land those debuffs or she's just not as effective. Her base damage and being an epic does not give her a lot of damage, but with the debuffs and the frostbites, then it's very good. Especially with her, a good thing to note about her is that if she lands frostbite on the enemies and then freezes them, that means on their turn they do not use soul, which means the frostbite effect will trigger the soul damage because they didn't use soul because they were frozen, and since the freeze effect lasts for 2 turns, with the passive, this means they have 2 turns receiving 15% of their damage, which is 30% damage. So that's pretty good, because you don't even have to hit them, and they're taking 30% of their damage during those 2 turns. This makes her quite good as a CC, or with an additional CC if she can land those frostbites, and as long as the enemies are controlled and CC'd, they will be taking that damage. She is pretty good when paired with the Skady, but there all are other options, and you don't have to pair her with anything, as she does do quite well even on her own. Because of the way her passives and skills work, she can apply the freezes and the frostbites all by herself, so she doesn't have to be. But if you're looking for something to pair with Skady to help increase the chances of landing those frostbites and freezes, then Skady is a good option with the Anarore, but also keep in mind that if you're needing a stripper, then if you have a Lucius, then she is a good stripper because she does apply the freeze, and that helps the Anarore also. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I'll answer them as soon as I can. Thank you.